The three tenors used to sing in this format once a year. And throughout the year, they would be practicing. And while on the stage, Placido Domingo got carried away. Zubin Mehta, who is the conductor, had two options. He could have swung his baton to stop the whole show because he didn't know the new territories Domingo was taking them to, and we wouldn't have noticed. But he went for the second option, to say, I don't know what this is, but I will trust you. Conductors quite often are paid for doing this. Most of us, when we are leaders, we are equally paid for doing that. But what does Zubin Mehta do? He dropped his hands. There are times when you must get out of the way. The process of innovation requires that those of you who are leading, those of you who are at the center of things, sometimes you do not block that which is unfamiliar, and yet it is the game changer that must take place for us to get to a different place. And when the time comes, Zubin holds the space. And you should see this, and as he's moving like that, he knows at that moment to have that magical ending, which was not rehearsed throughout the year. Invention cannot be rehearsed. It is working up to the moment when it's happening. But you need to really open the whole of that, your mind, your heart, and that. And in the right moment, you will connect, and the invention and the innovation will occur. I will ask that we watch that last bit again, for you to see that little bit. And at the end of it all, you see Placido Domingo take away Zubin Mehta because he knew he had put his colleague on a roller coaster. So we don't know the answers. We don't have the answers to the world we want. But we know that together we can co-create something. It is the art of opening up to all that. And when that happens, then we will recognize when the new possibilities come through. So allow me to quickly run through the process that will underpin what we are going to do in the next few days, and the process that innovators use. The first stage we need to do when we are innovating is to co-initiate and bring together a cross-sectoral group of stakeholders, multi-stakeholders from across sectors. We are an example of that in this room. Businessmen and women, government people, development expertise, and all the other people that we need. The problems we are confronting as humanity, no one sector can deal with them adequately. We need to learn to convene a cross-sectoral group of people and then together discover common intent. When we do that, the next stage is not to do the traditional thing of sitting in our walls and brainstorming about the problem. We need to go out there so that we can pick the keys to the future we want. It is the old-fashioned way that anthropologists used to use. Go and live in there. See what is happening. This is what good farmers do. Every morning, they wake up and they sense the field. You see them walking across the field. They look at this leaf, they pick the soil, they smell it, and they move on. And the next day, they know that they will plant oranges there, and they will do apples on the other side. It only comes because you have walked the field. I had the privilege of facilitating an innovation program early this year of 40 young men and women between the ages of 20 and 40 who were given the challenge by the two governments of the UK and India to come up with a way of reducing the cost of heart surgery from $20,000 US to $1,000 US. And only one of them was a medical doctor. And when they finished their work and presented it to world-class surgeons, they said, "How did you discover that? Where did that come from? This is what we have been looking for." All that these 40 young men and women did was immediately they received the challenge. They went out there to pick the keys to unlock the questions they had. They talked to medical doctors, to architects. They talked to technologists. They talked to heart patients. They talked to families of people who had suffered from heart failure. And at the end of it all, within a week, they were able to come up with possible answers of how to reduce the cost of heart surgery to $1,000. We are asking you to do something similar this week. The third stage you move on, when you have sensed the field, is to retreat. I know we claim we are very busy and we don't have time for silence. You need to separate yourself. Once you have been in the material circumstances where you are trying to understand things, allow now a separate moment when you can ask yourself two fundamental questions. Who am I and what is my work? That is the source of inspiration. It is always back to who you are and what you think your mission on earth is. And in that moment, some ideas will spark. And when those ideas spark, don't smother them with interrogation. Select a few of those so that you can begin the process of prototyping. Prototyping is very different from piloting. Prototyping, unlike piloting, allows for failure. Piloting comes with grand fanfare and almost saying it is just a while before we can. Prototyping is creating the landing strips for the future we want. It is learning by doing, becoming wiser, because through the process of implementation, we learn what we couldn't have known when we are in our offices. It is also believing in the fact that there is intelligence in our hands. Out of what is working among the prototypes, then you can move on and scale up. Because the change we want to see in the world needs to have scale. And if it cannot be scaled, it is not likely to serve some of the issues we are confronting. And how do I understand scaling up? I think we have two ways in which we can scale up. One, if we have the power of policy, we can simply promulgate, like most ministers of finance do, from midnight to night, the price of alcohol will increase by 2 cents. And so it is. If you wake up the following day, you just find the reality. But very few of us in our work have that kind of privilege. What do we have? It's the opposite. The concept of 1,000 flowers. What is working from the prototype, just increase the number slightly. And what has worked from 20, just create 60. And next time, create 120 and increase the number. And as you move on, there will be the point of takeoff, what Malcolm Gladwell calls the tipping point. All of us have the power to change things from that perspective. I invite you to experiment, and I thank you.